You know, in spiritual circles, there's this phrase you hear all the time. You have to mortify the old self. But what in the world does that actually mean? For some people, it's this incredible path to joy and authenticity. But for others, it's just this source of constant draining pressure.
So, yeah, which one is it? Is this teaching supposed to set you free? Or does it just end up weighing you down, making you feel anxious, like you're just never quite spiritual enough? Well, it turns out the answer to that really depends entirely on how we understand it.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to tackle that confusion head-on. First, we'll look at why this command is so confusing. Then, we'll redefine what the old self really is. We'll compare repression and renewal with some real-life stories, give you a practical self-check, and finally, map out what that true path to freedom looks like.
Okay, let's be real for a second. If you've ever felt just tired or anxious or completely burned out from trying to die to yourself, I want you to know you are absolutely not alone. It's a super common experience, and it usually points to a big misunderstanding of the whole idea.
Think of it like this. The very same teaching can lead to two totally different places. One path leads to this deep, genuine joy and being your true self. The other one, it leads straight to fatigue and anxiety. The crazy thing is, the outcome isn't really about the teaching itself, but about how we interpret it and how we put it into practice.
All right, let's get to the heart of it. To really clear up all this confusion, we've got to go back to the original texts. What are we actually being asked to put to death here?
This verse from Romans is absolutely crucial. Now pay close attention to the specific targets here. It says the old self and the body ruled by sin. Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say our entire person or our personality or all of our emotions need to be crucified.
And that's the key right there. The whole point is to break sin's power over us, not to completely annihilate our sense of self. It's like a surgical strike, not a scorched earth policy on your personality.
Now, this verse from Galatians, this shows us the other side of the coin. See, it's not just about what dies, it's about who gets to come and live inside. The focus totally shifts from elimination to invitation. It's a positive thing.
This really gets to the core of it. The idea isn't to become an empty shell, a void. It's all about replacement, making room so that something new, something vibrant and amazing can grow in its place.
Now, you might be wondering, okay, but what does this look like in the real world? Well, this verse from Colossians gives us a very concrete, practical list. The things to be put to death are specific, destructive behaviors and attitudes, not our fundamental human needs or feelings.
So let's land on a super clear definition here. To mortify the old self simply means putting an end to those sinful behaviors and that natural tendency we all have towards self-centeredness. It does not mean you have to destroy your personality, ignore your real needs, or pretend you don't have emotions.
Okay, now that we've got that definition straight, let's see how this actually plays out in real life. We're going to look at two paths that might start in the same place but end up in drastically different destinations. The path of unhealthy repression and the path of healthy renewal.
On one side, you have repression. This is what happens when we start labeling our legitimate human needs, like rest or feeling valued, as just fleshly desires that we have to crush. And let me tell you, that path is a one-way ticket to burnout. But on the other hand, you have healthy renewal. That's all about surrendering our self-centeredness, and that path leads to becoming a more whole, more authentic person.
So let's make this real. Meet Xiaofeng. She's a talented piano player on our worship team, but she is constantly terrified of making a single mistake. Deep down, she secretly believes that God's approval of her is directly tied to her delivering a flawless performance every single time.
Her huge breakthrough came when she shifted from that place of repression to one of renewal. She didn't kill her desire to play the piano well, no. Instead, she mortified that self-centered belief that her value came from her performance. She surrendered her anxiety and just started to worship freely, right from her heart. That is what healthy mortification looks like.
Now let's look at a totally different story. This is Aming. He is absolutely exhausted from a long, hard week at work. But when his church group asks for help with a project over the weekend, he feels this immense guilt. He tells himself that to mortify his old self, he just has to say yes. You can see the problem here, right? Aming is on the path of repression. He mistakenly labeled his genuine, very real need for rest as some unspiritual, fleshly desire that had to be stamped out.
He completely ignored his own boundaries, all in the name of spirituality, and that is a classic recipe for burnout.
So here's the crucial distinction, the one thing you really need to get. True dying to self is a free choice that's motivated by love. Unhealthy repression, on the other hand, is a forced reaction driven by pressure or guilt. One of these is sustainable and life-giving. The other is a ticking time bomb.
Okay, let's make this super practical for you. How can you actually tell which path you're on? We're going to go through a quick self-check to help you reflect on your own experience.
Take a moment to just look at these questions, and honestly, feel free to hit pause if you need to really think about them. If you find yourself answering yes to most of them, that's a great sign. You're probably on the healthy path of renewal. But if no is your more common answer, it might be a little nudge that you've slipped into a pattern of repression. This is a great chance to just pause and reevaluate. So, where do these two paths ultimately lead? Well, the outcomes couldn't be more different, and honestly, the stakes are pretty high.
I mean, just look at the stark contrast here. It's totally black and white. Unhealthy repression leads to anxiety, guilt, and isolation. But healthy renewal, that leads to freedom, peace, and deeper, more authentic connections with God and with other people.
If you only take one single thing away from our time together, let it be this. The target for mortification is your sinful nature, that self-centered drive inside all of us. It is not your true self, your God-given personality, your legitimate human needs, or your emotions.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. What if we've had this whole concept flipped upside down? What if dying to self isn't about becoming less of you, but about finally becoming more fully and freely the person you were always created to be?